Ladies and gentlemen, you all viewers, welcome to your favorite English news program. The highlights. For Eswazini Nyasingbe, Togolese head of state, paid a working visit to Japan this week for exchanges on the Japan-Togo cooperation on the academic grounds. We will focus on the reopening of schools this week. That was on Monday week. Then on the international scene, Burkina Faso has a new leader. His name is Captain Traoré Ibrahim. It was after a coup that happened yesterday. Well, viewers, you're welcome back to your English news program. I'm Alesson Poti, and I'm speaking to you from your national television, TVT. The Togolese head of state for Eswazini Nyasingbe was in Japan this week, a working visit that gave him the opportunity to confer with the Japanese Prime Minister and Emperor Ito. Let's have the report. In Tokyo, for Eswazini Nyasingbe, President of the Republic of Togo, exchanged with the head of the Japanese executive, Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. Exchanges between the two key personalities were opened to members of their delegations. Priorities of the bilateral relationships between Togo and the Sunrise State, Japan, were on the agenda. This fruitful cooperation is based on a dynamic and multidimensional partnership. Agreements and conventions from this existing relationship were sourced from different domains: infrastructure, food safety, and the drawing of the digital map of Togo as defined by the Japanese Cooperation Agency and the International Conference of Tokyo on the Development of Africa. Japan is a strategic partner of Togo in the implementation of the country's development programs. The head of state equally met with the Japanese Emperor Naruhito. While in Japan, for Eswazini Nyasingbe took part in the memorial service of the late Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, dead in the early days of June this year. Monday, 26th of September 2022, was reopening day of primary, secondary, and high schools in Togo. The head of the Togolese government, Victoria Tomega-Dogbe, paid a visit, took it upon herself to visit schools in the maritime region of Togo and check on the effectiveness of attendance. The report. Schools in Lomé, as well as those in the other regions of Togo, reopened for a new academic year. Victoria Tomega-Dogbe, Togolese Prime Minister, and delegations led by members of the government visited more schools to be sure of the effectiveness of classes. This after a week educational reopening for teachers and school staffs. The Togolese Minister of Primary and Secondary Education, speaking to the press, declared a level of satisfaction is reached in what concerned attendance. According to him, about 3 million pupils and students are expected this year. The Prime Minister, on her side, brought to them the government support. She expressed herself on challenges in the sector. She alluded to the governmental roadmap that stipulated that we need to make Togo a peaceful nation, strong and with disciplined citizens that will be future leaders. Have teachers who will give quality training to our students by making available school manuals. Victoria Tomega-Dogbe insisted on the inclusiveness of the Togolese educational system. She extended the head of state for Eswazini Nyasingbe's greetings and wishes to the teachers and students. Staffs and students of the Agwenive Central High and the Rose of Bear, Pa de Souza, had the visit of the Prime Minister. In these educational setups, she encouraged teachers and exchanged with them on reforms in the Togolese educational sector. Students have resumed, they've joined their classrooms, they will copy lessons and they will take notes. For a successful year, they need to have a good eyesight. Our crew got close to Professor Balo, an eye care specialist, to take his pieces of advice on how poor sight can impact our children's studies. Joining their classrooms for the learning process to begin, teachers, pupils, and students need a good sight.
You need to be in good health. And eye is one of the components of good health, and you need your good sight to take your notes in the classroom you need a good side to interact with your classmates, and you need a good side when you come back to home to read your notes and to read and to study at home. When the teacher is on the board and maybe you are sitting in the middle of the classroom, maybe you are sitting in the back of the classroom, when the teacher is explaining, the teacher is writing something on the board and you don't see well, you have to go to your mate and say, can you explain this to me? Can I copy from your...
In most cases, parents ignore the harm lack of eye care can do to their children. Sometimes they have no idea of symptoms to observe.
Normal reading distance is, let's say, 30 centimeters. So suppose your children is reading, the nose is just very, very close to the books or very close to maybe the sheet on which he or she is writing. That means that is not normal. And sometimes tearing. When they go to school, they come back, they have tears on the eyes, or even redness. But most of all is headache, because when the reading give you workload, you'll have headache. You have headache. So you have to check very well all those signs when your pupils come from school. And you can ask them, when the teacher is writing something on the board, can you see well? Are you going to ask your teacher, okay, please, teacher, can you move me from backward to forward so that I will be very close from the board, and then maybe that will ease my pain.
Poor eyesight could be controlled by vision tests such as refraction for eyeglasses prescription and the slit lamp exam. Lomé was the venue for the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS Parliament's 5th legislature seminar and session. The event started on Thursday and ended yesterday. Let's have the report. The anthem of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, announced the opening of the seminar of Houses of Parliament from the 50 member states present in Togo. These 2 days sub-regional seminar was opened by the Speaker of the ECOWAS Parliament, Dr. Sidi Mohamed Tunis. It had as theme the application of the supplementary acts on the enhancement of the powers of the Parliament in the light of the restructuring of the ECOWAS Commission. According to speakers, discussions for 2 days will focus on the supplementary acts taken in 2016 to empower the Parliament. 6 years after voting the act, it is the ECOWAS Parliament's progressing or regressing. Homage was rendered to the Togolese head of state for Esozimna Singbe for his remarkable leadership in the sub-region. The Speaker of the ECOWAS Parliament declared their expectation is that the seminar increases the comprehension of members on the acts.
It is expected that this seminar will increase the understanding of members of Parliament of the extent of their enhanced powers and take full ownership of them. It is also expected that members will be informed about the institutional reforms currently ongoing in the ECOWAS system, particularly at the ECOWAS Commission, and how it directly affects their work. The seminar will also provide a forum for all of us to think deeply about ways to solidify our relationship within the ECOWAS institutional framework. This is expected to guarantee that we are positioned to make meaningful contributions to the integration process in line with the powers contained in the Supplementary Act.
After the seminar, the 2022 extraordinary session will be opened for budgetary debates. Human rights now with a workshop on torture that opened in our capital Lomé on Thursday. Members of the government, of the Togolese government and human rights experts met to ponder over the half-yearly activity of the undertaken by the Togolese Human Rights Commission. On Thursday, the workshop on exchanges with ministers and members of parliament on the implementation of recommendations of the Committee Against Torture and those of the National Human Rights Commission opened. Were equally present at the workshop financial and technical partners, experts in torture, members of the Human Rights Commission and institutions. Following from this encounter, they formulated recommendations and made proposals that will make of human rights not a problem but a well-being mechanism. According to Barrister Stromvi, halfway through their activities, they need to pause and see what was done, gauge successes and failures, and make necessary corrections and amendments for the better applications of recommendations from the workshop. Progress had been recorded, but the government wanted to put in more efforts. According to Minister Trimwa of Human Rights and Relations with Institutions, projects such as the building of a new prison in Lome and the one in Sutubwa and their conformity to international standards and norms, the amendment of the penal code, and operations at the Ministry of Security penalties to agents who misbehave were some of the efforts of the Togolese government. It was in July 2019 that Togo presented its third report on the state of human rights and torture. Outside Togo and in Uganda, some schools have to close their doors again. The reason being an outbreak of Ebola in some districts of the country. Even though authorities are encouraging students and teachers to resume, some fear the risk of contamination.
The Madudu Church of Uganda Primary School is eerily quiet as an outbreak of Ebola keeps children away. The sub-county of Mubende district is the epicenter of a recently announced outbreak of the disease. There have already been several deaths and parents are keeping their children at home rather than take any risks.
The school enrollment is 692 pupils. Now we have only 16. It is due to Ebola. Parents feared their pupils to be affected by this. We can say it is a pandemic disease.
Even some teachers are opting to stay home in fear of catching the virus, which appears to be spreading. That's despite government advice for schools to stay open.
We have sensitized them and showed them some of the materials which were available to us, but still they have that fear because of seeing the way children and the other older people are dying.
But there are concerns students of Madudu will be at a disadvantage compared to other parts of the country as they miss classes and even exams.
The curriculum in the entire country is one. The other schools are going on. We have, this is the last term in the year. They will all sit for their exams. They will not stay and they will sit another time. They are going to sit at the same time. So I would propose and appeal to our teachers, the leaders, to say that we just need to step up the measures of seeing that people are not getting in direct contact with each other, but the classes and schools should continue.
Authorities are encouraging schools to put extra measures in place to reassure parents. The latest outbreak of Ebola was announced on the 20th of September, and since then there have been over 35 positive cases, with many unaccounted for deaths.
Burkina Faso, junior officers toppled Lieutenant Colonel Sandaogo Damiba, a coup d'etat the African Union considered as unconstitutional. A report from our colleagues of the African Newsroom.
The African Union has condemned what it called the unconstitutional change of government in Burkina Faso. On Friday, junior officers overthrew Lieutenant Colonel Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba, who himself had taken power in a military coup just months earlier. As soldiers took over state TV, they said 34-year-old Captain Ibrahim Traoré was in charge. In the capital Ouagadougou, opinion was mixed. He could no longer manage the security situation, he says. Many people died, and more criminals approached the big cities. So many people were not happy about that. If there was a problem between the soldiers, discuss it between you, he says, to find the right solution. It's not the right solution to overthrow the power. That means, with this kind of situation, you don't know when it's going to end. Head of the African Union, Musa Faki Mohammed, said he was deeply concerned about the resurgence of unconstitutional ousters in Burkina Faso, and he demanded the restoration of the constitutional order by July 2024.
Tuesday was the World Tourism Day. They celebrated again 2 years after the COVID-19 pandemic. How to relaunch activities in the sector and make it more important were points underlined by the Togolese Minister of Tourism. Togo is leaving behind the 2 years of inactive tourist activities engendered by the COVID-19 pandemic. The World Tourism Day served as an occasion to think about tourism, and Togo is today committed to change the sector and make it more resilient. In his address, the Togolese Minister of Culture and Tourism declared there are much to be done to revamp the sector. A new start that will make tourism contribute to the economic development of the country and commercial activities of women in the various regions of Togo. Despite the crisis, according to him, tourism remains an important sector of our economy. Visits by tourists increased from 481,706 in 2020 to 983,969 in 2021. Revenue from tourism increased to 25 billion CFA in 2021, while in 2020 it was just 19 billion CFA. Make the sector more attractive and suitable for tourists. That's the government's vision. This is behind the elaboration of the national strategy for revamping the sector. The World Tourism Day is celebrated on the 27th of September every year. When we talk of tourism, we need to think about ways and means by which we can promote the sector. Johnny, a young YouTuber from China, has his way of doing it. Let's follow this special report of Kwasi Anglais.
Hello, 大家好，我是小钟，我现在在非洲的多哥洛美。
This videos has more than 800,000 subscribers. Hundreds of such videos exist on YouTube that inform about Togolese meals, culture, and business opportunities.
Madam, 沙水馆。阿基对。阿基。对。阿基对。我看一下马达姆这个，他说叫什么阿基果，我试一下。Okay, merci.
These are records of Johnny, a young Chinese living in the country for almost 3 years. Johnny's curious life has no limit. Since he arrived in Togo, he wants to do everything, touch everything, and eat Togolese local meals. He quickly adapted to Togolese daily life. His passion and vision about Togo, Johnny wants to share with other Chinese the world over.
I think it's meaningful for me to do it, to introduce this country, because like last year, there are 2 Chinese who watch my videos. They say this place is many opportunities for the business. So they bought the tickets, they come here. And we took like 8 months. We helped them to have the factories here. And the factory offered around 300 jobs for the Togolese people. So I'm very happy to do it like this. And also I hope I can attracted more Chinese people to come here for investment.
More than an appeal to Chinese to invest in Togo, Johnny's videos bring viewers to have a new look at Togo and Africa.
Qu'est-ce que vous avez ici? Bissap. Tamarin.
On fait ça avec le maïs.
C'est les ha? Je connais. Niki a fait comment? Bissap. Bissap 1 et puis.
Combien vous voulez?
200. In China, there are most of the people, they know a few about Africa, because they think maybe Africa is like a country, a big continent. They don't know there are 54 countries in Africa. So people normally they think this land is a poor land. There are wars and poverty and malady, something like this. But actually, because I stay in Africa for 5 years, so I know this land. I have been to 13 African countries. I know this is not truth. So I want to introduce what the real African look like, so to let more people know.
Johnny visited 13 African countries, but Togo was his favorite destination.
Togo is my favorite country because here is peaceful, people are lovely. So we decided to base here. And sometimes if we are available, we'd like to have more, availability to visit the other African countries, not only in Togo, like Benin, Côte d'Ivoire, the other countries. And my first time when I went to Asigame, I felt like a star. People say, okay, there's a Yovo, come to the market to try our local foods. And they say it's amazing and very amazed. But I'm very enjoyed to have the local food because the food is colorful. There are many things I have never tried in the other countries. I'm very enjoyed the life of Africa because it's, how to say, very pure.
Tu vas acheter tout son 500, tout son 500.
Franchement, je l'ai 500.
Oui, oui. Achetez pour votre femme, monsieur.
Oui, monsieur. Au lieu de fumer, achetez.
Oui.
More than 1.5 million subscribers can be seen on his Chinese YouTube. Owing to his posts, some Chinese investors established their enterprises in Togo. Many are Chinese who keep contacting him for a tower. Has Johnny been more interested in Togo than Togolese? For him, there is no best place than Africa for good living.
On this special report of Anglais that we bring to this program, to this English news program, to an end. See you again on Saturday next week. By then, have a nice weekend and a nice Rosary Week month.